the European food supply will change. And I'm sorry to say it's going to be for the worse. The Americanization of Europe has begun. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my channel, The Sensitive Traveler. My name is Carrie. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about whether or not Europe is a good fit for you in your choice to move abroad. I've been living in Split, Croatia for 2 years. I escaped the US because of health issues mostly. However, there were a lot of issues that I'd wanted to leave the US over for many, many years. But it was actually the result of being poisoned by toxic mold and not recovering due to many factors, such as the physical environment that I was living in Dallas, Texas, the air quality, the ozone, all of the triggers that I now had when previously I had no allergies. I had 0 allergies until I was exposed to toxic mold. The mold was in the HVAC system in my apartment, and I'll be speaking about that in another video. But what happened is it made me really, really sensitized. Everything that came into my body was like an assault. So my system would react. And I became dairy and wheat and gluten intolerant. And I was allergic to the pollen, the dust, the grass, the air and ozone, as I was saying. And if you can imagine, how do you live like that? You really don't. I was living on lockdown before we were all on lockdown. That was my life for years. And after a while, I realized that I wasn't going to get better. It didn't matter how many supplements I took. It didn't matter how strict of a diet. I was on a very specific diet to manage my inflammatory response. Because when you're poisoned by mold, you are diagnosed with what's called CIRS, C-I-R-S, which is chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And you have to learn to manage that in order for you to be able to function. So all in all, I was not going to get better until I left the country. I needed a better food supply. I knew that Europe had a cleaner food supply. I'd lived there before, and I'd kept up with, the jurisdictions, the things and the regulations. I know what they do. But that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today. I think it's very important that you, as a sensitive person who wants to live abroad, I think it's important that you realize there have been many changes in just the last few years. And what I'm talking about is the fact that the European food supply will change. And I'm sorry to say it's going to be for the worse. The Americanization of Europe has begun. I know many people living here will say it's already started, but I am seeing this big, like a wave that is about to crash. And I predict that, I don't know, in 5 or 10 years, the Europeans will be experiencing what Americans do on a regular basis. You're going to have way more food allergies. You're going to have so many people with gut health issues. You're going to have people who are dealing with anxiety and depression because those two things can be triggered by, really poor gut health. 90% of your neurotransmitters are in your gut. So this is something that I never thought I would see. I had lived in Europe many years ago. I'd lived in Europe for 7 years, back in the 90s. And I'd always expected to come back somehow. And when I was doing my research, over the years, I had seen that they had been very strict about Monsanto, Roundup, and very strict about GMO foods and not allowing them here. And I knew a lot of the mentality around food here. So I'm part European, so I'm half and half, but my mother's side was European. And so I have Italian and then a ton of other things, a lot of Mediterranean countries, Greece and France and Spain. And then I have British as well. So I've got a big mix of cultures within me. But I'm very familiar with the Mediterranean diets and the mentality around food. But even in places not on the Mediterranean, like Germany and Austria, I lived in Vienna for 2 years, and I think I think that's some of the freshest food that I've ever eaten in my life. Now, this is back in the 90s, but I just remember everything being so like beautiful and robust, and everything you ate, you felt the energy right away from the vegetables, and it was just so healthy. And I know that they really take that seriously. So Europe was on my radar, and I decided that going forward, if I had just invested all of the time and money and fought like hell to stay alive while I had this very seriously dangerous poison coursing through my veins, I thought Europe was going to be the place for me long term, because I knew that I wanted to be able to have access to good food that I could trust for years to come. Well, I'm sorry to say that all of the plans that they had had in place to phase out Monsanto and to never let in GMOs, or if they, basically not have GMOs, they just reneged on all of that. So when I say the Americanization of Europe is here, this is what I'm talking about. So they're going to destroy the food supply here. They're going to allow Monsanto to continue, and they're going to allow GMO foods in. They'll be called something else, I believe. So guys, this is really important for you to know. You can still come to Europe now because the food supply isn't like that now. And you can experience what it's like to be able to, have your dairy and your coffee. Like I met someone the other day I think she was from Seattle, and she couldn't believe she had a coffee with cream, and she's like, I'm fine. I mean, come here and enjoy it while it lasts is what I'm saying. I'm just being real, I'm not trying to dissuade you from living here, but I'm wanting you to make an informed decision. Because if you are someone who's planning to come and buy property and live here long term, and you're sensitive and you're going to need foods like that, then you're going to need to look at other countries that have some strict laws within their framework, right? So, because what I'm talking about is the EU making those decisions. But if you go to a country, perhaps a country in Scandinavia or maybe the Netherlands, where they themselves already have some really strict rules in place, you want to study, you want to research. What is it that they are planning to do once all of this EU regulation becomes the norm? When they start allowing Roundup everywhere, are you going to still have access to organic foods? Because there are a lot of people who grow organic and biodynamic foods in the Netherlands and certain parts of Italy and Spain and other countries. And I know that that's like on my radar is, I'd love to go somewhere where there's going to be, those people. You can tell I like to talk. So I'm going to have some more videos that are more like informative and to the point, but I do have a gift for gab. So if you like listening and you made it to this point, thanks so much for sticking around. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment and let me know some of the questions you have about the topic that I just shared, or if you want to know something else specific as a sensitive traveler, I'm so happy to share with you. That's why I started this channel, and everyone has different needs. I really want to help others make the right decision and make an informed decision. That's the most important. How can you make an informed decision if you don't have all of the information?